The public beta for Update 34 Before the Shadow is finally here for the Lord of the Rings Online, and there's a lot of stuff to check out with that. So for Before the Shadow, you can find more about that in the LOTRO market, or I have videos on that. But with the beta, we have things like the delving, the 2 new zones, and we have the new starter intro experience. We even have the new skirmish. All that is available for testing. But beyond all that, I actually think the biggest change coming in the update that I am perhaps most excited for is going to be down here in the classes section. So as you all know, I have made a lot of videos on class trait points and a lot of videos complaining about how you get class trait points. But one thing I have to praise Standing Stone Games for is they are completely changing that, like doing a complete 180 on how you get those. So now all your trait points you will get just from leveling up. That means no class deeds. That also means no Rohan quests, Gondor quests, no epic quests, no meta deeds, no epic battles, nothing like that. It is just from leveling now. Now for a little bit more information on how that will work, because there still will be 98 class trait points total that you can get at level 140, it will be spread out a little bit differently as you level up, as Cordovan posts here. 1 point every levels from 2 to 22, and then you get 1 point every other level thereafter, which is kind of similar to how it works now with that. But then you'll also get some bonus points at certain level caps, and then occasionally you'll also get 1 point every level. But really what matters is you'll just get class trait points from leveling. So with that, not only in the beta, but also when the mini expansion actually launches and we get update 34 live, your trait trees will be reset. So it's important to remember your build and perhaps take a screenshot as a reference so you can know what you want to build after the update. But just to look at this character, he's level 60 and now I have 42 trait points. So for this particular character, compared to before, I have at least 10 more trait points because I know I could not unlock the last row of traits. I did not have Cry of the Wizards, and now I can get that among other things because of this change. So you all can probably tell I'm very excited for this and very happy with this change. So back to the patch notes that we have for the beta, I will get into a lot more information, I think, in additional videos and live streams. I do plan to live stream tomorrow. That will be Thursday, October 20th with this beta. But with the delvings, we will check that out. And then the new starter instance, that's going to be the new intro. So when you create a character, you have that. And then the new skirmish, this is something that was actually, I'm going to be honest, a little bit disappointing to me initially, is that it's a defensive skirmish. I'm not a big fan of defensive skirmishes. They're compared to the attacking skirmishes, the offensive ones, they're just relatively boring because you go at the instance's pace instead of your own pace. But they do have this as a full feature skirmish where it's levels 20 to 140. You can set the level, you can run it solo, duo, small fellowship, or raid, so between 1 and 12 people really. And looking in game here, it does indeed have up to tier 3 for the Doom of Karis Gelebrin. That is the new skirmish. Now, just stepping inside, I will avoid as many spoilers with the story of the skirmish as possible, but we are in the second age, and this is just visually what it looks like inside. So I'm super excited to eventually run this, but not for this video. Now, with the new set of missions, we also have the new delving system, and we have a lot more information than we previously had on these. So we basically all know that as you run higher tiers, you have better chance for better loot and all that sort of stuff. And you can indeed get gear and perhaps some legendary items loot from them, but then we do have confirmation that you'll have a max of 10 per day, which seems relatively reasonable. I'm not always the biggest fan of locks like that, but 10 per day doesn't seem too bad. That is actually a lot. Now, something that I actually do not see where it says anywhere that delvings will fail when dying, but what it says here is delvings will fail when you leave the instance. Okay, that makes sense, but it says not just dying, which implies that delvings will fail if your character dies during them. So I suppose you have to run them deathless, but a confirmation on that would be nice. Maybe that's something we can test out because I am sure to die when I dive into these delvings. So after that, in the beta notes thread, there are tons and tons of class changes and even monster player changes that are really out of the scope of this video, but there are tons of stuff if you want to read the details with the different classes. It's all exciting to see, and I haven't even gotten into all of it myself. They also have quite a few different changes. These are basically miscellaneous quest and instance changes, it says here, but we even have things like characters. This is a little bit sad. I get why they're doing it, but They're making it consistent that in instances in epic battles you cannot use these skills. So Minstrel still as death, they're basically feign death type skill. Hobbit silence, I'm actually less familiar with that. Perhaps it's a Hobbit thing. Sounds very much so like it. And then Desperate Flight for hunters, they cannot use that in instances. But then also burglars, this one's perhaps the oddest of all those to me, is hide in plain sight. That is, even with my very limited burglar experience, it's like been a nice thing to have in instances in group content. It also seems odd to me that Beornings cannot use Roaring Challenge in instances with 12 or more players. That's just a little bit odd. Now, there are a couple other exciting things I do want to get to before we go back to actually going in-game, and one of them is the quest tracker. You can now actually have 10 quests tracked and on the quest guide up at once, and that used to be 5. So I'm basically going through my quest log on this character and adding very random quests as they are shown here. So we can see on the map that we do indeed have almost 10 at least quests tracked, and even on, yes, the map we actually have these here. Now my concern is there are not that many colors, so I wonder if they plan to add more colors so you can actually differentiate. If you have 10 of these, you will actually have some overlapping colors. Still, I think it is a great addition to the game, just could use a little bit more polish and it will be significantly better even. Speaking of map, I know this is a little bit out of order, but you all know I love the map in LOTRO, so once I think about it, we gotta go to it. And down south of Lonelands, we have Cardolan, and we have the map actually officially in the game. There is that port to the Shire there, which we'll have to see how that works, if that actually can travel to the Shire, or if that more so really is South Farthing, but we will see on that. And then down to the east, we have to Swanfleet, and this connects, of course, to Eregion, the Angle of Mythathel, and Inadwaith. There's also Western Inadwaith, which I know is not in the game and not in this update, but they sure are teasing it as a potential future area from this. Okay, that aside, the other big thing, I have to actually find it here. So the other big thing is tucked away in the notes, and you can see I even had to use Control F to find it because going through this is a nightmare to try to find a specific word. But there's this quest called A Little Extra Never Hurts, and that is going to be part 2 for this in the intro experience for characters, and that now grants the writing skill and a mount. So this is a follow-up to the quest that I believe gave you LOTRO points in the intro, but this is something that now every single character that you make can do. So you can get the writing trait and you can get a mount for free without having to spend LOTRO points or wait till level 20 if you're a VIP to do the quest. So that's a pretty significant change and huge quality of life boost, not just to VIPs, but also to free-to-play players, which is exciting to see. I'm sure a lot of people will love that. And I realize this video is getting a little bit rambly with the slot here, but it's nice to see throughout this update there are a whole lot of different things that we haven't even gotten to, but things like the low to mid-level jewelry, shields, weapons being adjusted, and I think some other low mid-level armor adjustments, just having their stats updated, a lot of things like that in the previous things we covered that I think really will make the game seem better from a new player experience or even returning player experience, and honestly even a continuing player experience with things like the clash trait points, and just making alts will be a lot more friendly. So I am very happy to see a lot of this because there seem to be some archaic things in LOTRO that this update is, I think, completely fixing a lot of these. So with all that out of the way, I have not seen all too much of note, important note at least, in these entire beta patch notes. Again, it's a very long list. If you want to read it yourself, you are, of course, obviously free to, but I do encourage that if you want to see things in more detail than this video. So for the rest of this video, I'm very briefly going to explore Cardolan and Swanfleet. This won't be a deep dive into the zones, and you should stay tuned for a future video where I journey through the zones, but they do actually have them on the collections map, which is nice to see. I know some previous updates weren't initially added to the collections map, and Wildwood's still not on there, so that's a little bit odd, but let's go ahead and continue with this and just see what the first town that we randomly go to in Cardolan looks like. Wow, this actually is a really vast area. We also, coincidentally, have a delving reward vendor. So these are just what the gems look like. Here's actually gear. I was going to say it's not too exciting, but this is level 50 gear. So it's minimum level 50, but then it scales. I don't know if this is fully updated. They could obviously change it, but it's item level 474 is what's going to be relevant for level cap players because only level cap players can run the delvings. And on the right here are the missions, and we have some return to skills and a whole bunch of different things, and even some gear, which is item level 406, 470. Okay, it must be a different level. That's like level 130, which makes sense. So they do have new gear options with us. I'd be curious to see once the patch goes completely live if the gear stacks up compared to other level cap relevant stuff or even while leveling, but that is something that's going to take a deeper dive than this video. You may also notice here that there is indeed going to be a mechanic to get gold gear from these delvings. And of course, for people not interested in that, there are tons of housing decorations. That stuff is permanent gear, you always replace. There's also craftable traceries, recipes for those within the delvings. As we travel to Sarn Ford here to see how that connects to the Shire, I do want to point out with the delvings, I got into a little bit more detail than planned for this video, but I do intend to follow that up. And again, you can check my live stream tomorrow from this when this video is uploaded. It will probably dive into detail with a lot of that, but I will not be questing or doing any of the new story content. We'll probably just stick to missions and things where I can actually test out some of the systems. But if we look to the west here, this does perhaps indeed connect to the Shire. I also will say this is a really nice view. I'm excited to take a deeper look into this zone in the future, but this is a nice tease for you all and even me before I can get more into it. Oh, there is a portal there that takes us to the Shire. So this is the Delving Fields, and this will actually be in the southeast. So instead of South Farthing, it just transports you all the way to the Shire there. I wonder if that is intended or if this is something that's just like bridging a gap. It's giving you an opportunity to port to the Shire, but maybe they'll fill this area out in the future and this is just temporary. Either way, it's nice that you actually do have that option, but it honestly makes me even more interested for South Farthing. One more area I gotta check out because Eregian's one of my favorite zones in the entire game. Okay, never mind, the game will not let me port to Western Eregion yet, but because Eregion is one of my favorite areas in the entire game, just thought I'd check out one more town, one more area that is west of Eregion, and we can see where Carisgelibren, where that skirmish will be in just a little bit of the fields here, and here we can see over the hill, and into the swampy marshland over there, and a lot of exciting stuff. I also really like the skybox. It's similar to Gondor's skybox. I hope that stays and they're not intending to change that to be closer to Eriador. It's really nice to just have another area with that. But as much as I want to explore this area in additional detail, I have to refrain myself for now and we will wrap this video up. So I hope you all did enjoy it and learn something useful. A lot of really exciting stuff that doesn't even have to do with the content of the update, as in the 2 new zones, the skirmish, the missions, the delving system, the dungeon, which will actually come after this update. Besides all that stuff, there's a lot of other exciting stuff. So I'm looking forward to this and I hope you all are too. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing for more or becoming a channel member to support the content on the cat that was just meowing. And thanks for watching, everyone.